Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special Rangers review here in Seville. As you can see behind me, we're in the Spanish city looking ahead to Wednesday's Europa League final against Frankfurt. This is one of two special evening shows we're going to be bringing you here, right straight bang from Rangers Review HQ from the rooftop terrace. As you can see, I've got two fantastic guests behind me. You already know Joshua Barrie to my left-hand side. How are we doing, Joshua? Busy day today?
Same as it was this morning, Derek. Busy, but we've had a nice day in the. I was going to call it the Spanish capital.
You've got a bit of a tan, Joshua, by the looks of things.
Yeah, I'm going there. I'm getting there. You've not at all.
But, mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. No, good day though. Nice day. It's a beautiful city, isn't it? We've seen a bit of it. So that's been great.
Yeah, and in the middle we've got a special guest. Ally Bain joins us. Ally, all the way from the good old US of A.
Yes.
It's great to have you alongside us to talk Rangers. Tell us about your journey, how you've came over here, and a bit for the listeners that maybe or the viewers that are not quite familiar with who you are.
So my name's Ally Bain. I'm doing my best Susie McCabe impression right now, sweating out my spiky hair. But I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I travelled over last couple of days, flew through Tampa, into Gatwick, up to Glasgow, and then we made the nice little journey from Glasgow to Manchester to Malaga up to Seville. So you can fair say I've been putting the miles on.
Fantastic stuff. Excellent. Well, it's great to have you. So we're going to talk. This is an hour-long show, folks. It may go on a bit longer than that, but we plan to just talk Rangers, looking ahead to Wednesday night's game, of course. But before we do just that, just a bit of housekeeping. Of course, today is the last day you can take advantage of our great offer. It's just £6 a month. £6 a month, £6 for 6 months worth of content. So £1 a month, you pay your £6 and you get half a year's worth of content of the Rangers Review. Now, not only that, you also get entered into a prize draw for 2 tickets to the Europa League final on Wednesday night. One lucky winner will be picked at random tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. And subscribers who have subscribed prior to the promotion can also apply and take part in the prize draw, but you should have received an email to your inbox. Check your junk folder and your spam folder as well, just in case it's dropped in there. But a cracking prize, so head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. And a quick word as well for our sponsor, and my good friend Joshua Barrie will bring you all the details about that, about the One Football app. I'll just get it up shortly if I can find it here on the screen.
A scroll up, Derek. There you go. Yes.
There we go.
Delighted as ever to be sponsored by One Football, who help make this show possible, as well as all your subscriptions. And as you can see on screen just now, One Football gives you everything you need in a football app: live scores, news, goal updates quicker than Twitter. What else, Derek? Team lineups. So whether your team is Rangers, whether you have a cheeky second team, even if you just like keeping up to date with English teams, it could be anything, Derek, but you can download it for free. The link is in the description. So do go and do that. As you can see on the screen, One Football, completely free, supports the Rangers Review, and the link is at the very top of the description.
Yeah, there you go, folks. One Football app. It really is your one-stop shop for all your football needs. And everyone's talking about Rangers, of course, and we're the only show in town looking ahead to the game on Wednesday night. And before we do that, Ally, you made it over this morning, didn't you, to Seville? You jetted into Malaga. How was the drive, and what have you made of the city?
It was scenic, shall we say. I'm not looking forward to. We actually drive back to Malaga after the game. So as you can imagine, I'm a little bit apprehensive driving down that
What time's your flight?
It's 7 a.m.
Wow, we're hoping there's no penalties in.
So I'll be lucky to get to the city, I think, by 6:30. So no, we're going to make that little drive back down the road. So looking forward to it.
Fantastic. It's been a cracking atmosphere inside the city today, folks. I've met a number of Rangers supporters walking about. I've done a tour, of course, of the stadium where the final is going to be held, and also the stadium where the giant screens are going to be erected. I managed to sneak in when the guys were taking out the San Miguel stands. I managed to sneak in a little back passage and take a couple of snaps in there. It looks like there's going to be 4 massive screens erected. But it's a bit out of town, the stadium. I would advise you getting a taxi, an Uber or what have you to the actual stadium itself. I think there is a congregated bit with Rangers supporters are going to meet before heading over to that stadium, the Estadio La Carulla, I think that's how you pronounce it, Joshua. And you've got a bit of information, I think, inside information about the sort of logistics about fans heading over to that part of town.
Yeah, as well, just speaking to a few people today, and what we've picked up is it's important, a couple of important notes, which I'm just getting up on my phone. Obviously, the only people, if you're going to the screening, so not the actual game, if you're going to the screening, that is all ticketed. So make sure you've got a ticket before you head there. And just basically make sure if you've not got a ticket arranged or you don't know where you're going to watch the game, I've been told that there's maybe a lack of TVs in restaurants or said things. So obviously you don't want to turn up, have driven all this way, and then not actually find a way to watch the football. So do make sure that you've got somewhere to watch the football as well, and enjoy yourself, as everyone's been saying. It's going to be great fun. As you said, Derek, the atmosphere in the city's been fantastic. It's a lovely city. From what I gather, the mayor's been really influential in organising that screening. So all the Rangers supporters who are travelling over who don't have a ticket for the game can watch it in good company. And I'm sure you'll be very happy with all the custom he gets from all the paying customers, because there's going to be a lot of food eaten and drink drank.
Oh, there's already been a lot of drinking, food eaten already, and that's just from us, folks. So there's a number of the comments coming in already here. I want you to touch on it's your show, folks. So if you want to raise any points, just fire them in the comments, and we'll try and answer them the best we can. I want to touch on this point by Scott D. We've all seen the pictures. Roof on the plane, so hope he plays. Ali, I want to come to you. Kemar Roof, of course, he's not played since the Celtic semi-final, I think, Scottish Cup. Would you risk him in this one? Start him in this game?
It's a tough one. I mean, you look at match sharpness, and I think that's what he's probably going to be lacking, right? I think fitness by this stage in the year, you'd imagine he's built up a decent head of steam that he could probably miss a couple of games and slot himself back in, I think. But at the same time, they built up a decent bit of form without him. So, I think it would be a tough one to put him in from the start. I think emotionally we'd probably want a striker leading the line. But at the same time, I think Rebo's done well when he's been put in there. There's a couple of options that they've got. They can play differently in this game. So, if we don't see him, I wouldn't be broken-hearted. But I think if he does make it, then, all the best to him.
Joshua, you just sort of raised this point earlier. It seems bonkers to think Rangers going into a European final without an out-and-out forward. But it's one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing with regards to Roof. And I don't know if he starts the game. Do you risk him in this game?
I don't think you start him. I think he plays at one point, but I think the difference is, again, we touched on that this morning, Derek. Against Braga, Rangers' expected goals was almost 6, and Kemar Roof, we had a hat trick. He only had one goal at the end of the game. He had to put the ball in the net 3 times. I think that's a very different game from what it will be on Wednesday evening here in Seville. I don't think certainly Rangers won't have as many opportunities as that. I think it will just be a lot more transitional. And I think when Roof's played well in the absence of Morelos, what Rangers have done well is get bodies around him. So you remember at the start when Morelos was out of the team and he was quite isolated. I think in freeing up the fullbacks and bringing the wingers in field a little bit, which happens in particular, or pushing Ramsey up, which they did against Braga, to almost play as a split striker at points, which happened for what was a penalty when Ramsey's run allows Roof to go through on goal. I don't know if that's going to happen in the same way in the final. And I think Rangers do have goal threats in that team for this type of game. James Tavernier, even you look at Glenn Kamara in the last round, when it's going to be far more open. I don't know if you'd rather have the option of bringing Kemar Roof on as opposed to, as Ali says, someone who's not played in what will be over a month by this point, I think.
Yeah.
And then can't go the distance. And I think that's also the argument with Ramsey. Probably can't play the whole 120 minutes if it was to go to extra time. So I'd start the same team that started against Leipzig, probably. And I think that's what's got Rangers to this point, that collective effort, the dynamic element of that midfield. Mm-hmm. And you see with Van Bronckhorst, again, finding those solutions to get Rangers up the pitch against against Leipzig with Kamara with his back to goal. I don't think Rangers are dependent on a striker to get the ball up as they have been with Morelos in the past because of the way Van Bronckhorst has adapted the system. So good option to have. I think it's a bit of a risk for me to start him, Derek.
Yeah. Another comment coming in. Well, I like this one from the last King of Scotland. Great flag, boys. Where did you get it made? Josh, you just got it dropped off, didn't you? And before you headed out. But it is an absolutely stunning flag, as you can see behind us. Seville
We've
2022.
got a couple of spares if anyone wants one.
Wow,
yeah,
have we?
We have got a couple of spares. But we've also got a few T-shirts, Derek, which we're not modelling tonight.
We do.
But your dad's already reserved one.
Yeah,
I think my dad has as well. So if anyone sees us in the square and would like a T-shirt, we'll be happy to hand them out.
Listen, folks, we'll be in and around the main square tomorrow, so we'll have T-shirts with us. If you want a T-shirt, come up and have a chat with us, and we'll give them out. There's no doubt about it. There's an interesting comment coming in here with regards to Ryan Jack. Scott Hammond says, Ali, hopefully Jack comes straight back in. Now, the team that played Ross County for me on Wednesday night is probably the team that starts this Wednesday. Albeit, I think Alex Lowry may be the one to depart with Ryan Jack coming in. Would you go along with that, would you say?
Probably. I think what Jack gives you is obviously energy on and off the ball, a decent passing range, good quality technically, but I think it's the threat of running, it's the threat of movement and what it does to the opposition. Does it drop their lines? Does it make them press him a bit quicker to try and get the ball off of him and maybe open up some space elsewhere? So I think it's important he plays again. We talked about that mental thing earlier about Roof. I think just for Rangers fans and Rangers in general, if your best players are on the field, you'll feel good about yourself. And like I say, I just think he gives the team so much more than perhaps just from a football perspective. That having him in the lineup will be really good.
Yeah. Let us know if Ali's sounding okay, folks. Just a comment from a producer saying he might be in and out there, so. Well, I don't know if it's your mic, but we'll try and fix that as soon as possible. But we'll crack on here. So many comments coming in, folks. We'll try and hit as many of them as possible.
Can I just say, Derek, on that Ryan Jack comment,
batter in.
while you're searching through that, I think Ali makes a great point. I also think that where Frankfurt are so dangerous, I think it's 5 counter-attacking shots they've averaged per 90 in the knockout stages. Is counter-attacking Ali and Ryan Jack so good at covering that space for James Tavernier. And I think if you look at the goals that Frankfurt have scored, and Kostic is obviously the name that comes up a lot, Rangers need to protect those spaces really well. And I think the other point to that is only 4 teams in the knockout stages. I think it was 22 in the knockout stages. Only 4 teams have conceded fewer counter-attacking shots per 90 than Rangers, which is good. And I think that's 2 reasons. One, Ryan Jack, but also I think Borna Barisic, the fact that he's arriving in the final third, maybe instead of always occupying it and providing the width, and that means that if the attack turns over, he's perhaps in a better position to protect that left-sided space. I think that could be for me, I don't know what you think about that, but I think those 2 players, Jack and Barisic, could be so important because we know with Frankfurt, they have that high and wide system with their wing-backs. They've went and scored 3 goals at the Nou Camp. They've beaten West Ham. They're a good team. And as much as Rangers who've they beaten, to the 2nd best team and 4th best team based on the table in the Bundesliga this season, I think the message from both camps will be the same heading into this final, that look, it's a really good team, but we've beaten better teams to get here. How do you think that kind of impacts everything?
Well, I think to your point there about the numbers centrally, this is 2 teams, again, the little I've saw of Frankfurt that like to attack centrally, right? So if you've got potentially 5 of their players and potentially 4 or 5 of ours, you're going to need players that can do both sides of the ball. So again, having guys like Jack that can create counters and cover counters are obviously going to be important. I just think in the middle of the field where, a lot of our attacks are coming down the left-hand side, and especially to have Tavernier attacking the right-hand side, it's so important that you have players that have got good tactical awareness, good spatial awareness, and I think that's certainly where he brings the Bundes. Lundstram's shown himself to have those strengths recently, and obviously Kamara, as we know, can cover those spaces as well.
Yeah.
So having players that can play in there, that understand the system, can play both sides of the ball, and have a good understanding of when to press, when to hold, I think that only bodes well for us.
Yeah, and I asked Van Bronckhorst about that, how much it was an advantage to him that Frankfurt don't know exactly what Rangers are going to do. They know what Rangers can do, and they know the options that Rangers have got, but again, to use this example of Gerrard's Rangers, kind of the spaces they're going to leave when they defend. Rangers could be really aggressive and man mark from the start. They could set off and be really compact from the start. And I think that's really beneficial, certainly in terms of preparation for this game. Van Bronckhorst said, look at this level of football. You need to be able to do different things just because, it's harder to predict. I think at any level of football, if you're preparing to play a team, if you know exactly what they're going to do, it makes your preparation easier. You know, so I don't know how's the mic stuff going there for you.
Yeah, okay. I think we'll get by, folks. If it's not a good sound quality, please let us know in the comments, and I'll try and troubleshoot it, and we'll get around that. So many comments coming in. Incidentally, we'll try and get through loads of them. Actually a Frankfurt fan got in touch. I'll try and find them here. White Roulette, no less. Frankfurt fan here. Have you seen any football of ours so far? Now, Joshua, you've done you've been working away tirelessly a piece on Frankfurt. What have you found?
I was working up here with brief sunbathing breaks. I think that obviously there's all the kind of the obvious stuff with Kamada and Kostic on the left hand side. I think Frankfurt as well have variables in the way that they can play in terms of, you see, I think it's Lundstram and Kamada can either form a front three with Barrie and really show possession outside and press high up the pitch, or they can fall back in and make a four-man midfield and be a really hard team to break down. And Frankfurt haven't been beaten in this competition. Rangers have been beaten 5 times. That's quite a contrast. So I think they've got both sides of the game in that respect. Pretty weak at set pieces, I think, in terms of the expected goals that they've conceded from those areas. Whereas obviously, as we know, Rangers pretty strong. They've scored 2 goals. I think directly from set pieces. Both was Alfredo Morels, incidentally, who isn't in the picture for this game. But I think it's going to be interesting for me on the Frankfurt point what Van Bronckhorst does, because if you look at the West Ham game in particular, Frankfurt's right wing back, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Knaf, but it's probably not how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
The first goal, it's him getting a run on Fornals, and obviously West Ham are playing a back 4 in that situation, and Frankfurt are playing a back 5, and there were similar themes against Barcelona where they can constantly create those overloads on either side of the pitch. They always have the width because they're playing a back 5, and what that allows them to do is commit kind of 4 or 5 men to press in at the sides, win the ball back. We see that for, I think, is their second goal, Borres, in a stunning individual goal at the Nou Camp. So I think they have lots of elements to their game that make you a little bit worried from a Rangers persuasion. But what I would say is, I think even with an objective hat on, I think they have a little bit more of a dependency to attack into space than Rangers. And I think if you're looking at it from a Rangers point of view, that's perhaps encouraging. But also, they've not been beaten. They've scored a lot of goals, and they've beaten good teams. So I hope that answers the question. But I think definitely those key themes of being able to commit men to either side to press, being able to vary what they do in terms of their pressure, and also the wing backs. I think that's going to be interesting to see if Van Bronckhorst maybe matches them up, because do you try and imprint yourself in the game, or do you not? Do you say, I don't know, maybe one for Ally to come into, because it's definitely a difficult decision, but Van Bronckhorst has got the difficult decisions right to this point.
Yeah, Ally, you're the manager. What you saying? How are you setting up?
It's a good point. I think if you look at the West Ham game, and that was certainly the one I watched the most of them this season. West Ham tried to stay rigid, right? Tried to stay in their lines, not deviate too much in the shape, a general sort of Davy Moyes team. I think if we go in with that low pressure sort of zonal system, we're going to get murdered in this game. I think there's areas where we got to get tight. Joshua mentioned a couple of players there. I certainly think the centre forward dropping off between the lines is going to be a danger, because if we again go man for man, only have 2 midfielders against their 2 midfielders, now there's space in behind those guys to potentially pick up the ball. If we're not aggressive enough to step and press, then they can build through the thirds and progress that way. So their ability to change their shape, I also think is reminiscent of us. I think we're 2 similar teams in that we've got that way of playing down to a fine art recently. But I'd say that the biggest concern for me would be, if we are going with a back 4, how do we get ball pressure on the ball side and not get outnumbered at the back post? A couple of times against West Ham, they've got the ball attack on the left-hand side, and as Joshua mentioned, the goal at the back post was a good example. It's basically man for man, 2 strikers and right wing back against the back 3 of a back 4, essentially at the weak side. And if you can't pick that up, then obviously they're going to punish you. So I think it's really important we get the defensive line right, and hopefully we can then start to imprint ourselves in the ball moving forward.
Yeah, Joshua, a question for you here by Gudge Gordon, no less. Ramsey should start, then fresh legs if needed with Wright would be my choice. We sort of touched on this morning, Aaron Ramsey. Would you start him? He was brought into the club to play in games like this, but would you? It seems bizarre saying, would you start Aaron Ramsey on loan from Juventus? But
and you see,
I think I would prefer to play Scott Wright. To be honest.
and you see if you have this conversation on deadline day and you say Rangers are going to be in a European final, but Scott Wright's going to start over Aaron Ramsey. You think, but I think it's probably Derek. Football's so quick, and we were speaking about it this morning with Johnny. In regards to Calvin Bassey and him, can he play at a higher level, and the, I guess, importance of his physicality to his game. And I think you see with Scott Wright, to go back to that Leipzig game, obviously wins the ball high up the pitch for the second goal, and does Aaron Ramsey win that? I don't know. But also, what I think he did quite well is he's doing simple things in that role. He's not wide right, where I think his delivery is isolated all the time, and his delivery is inconsistent, and that's why didn't nail down the right wing position. But often he's playing the ball out to Tavernier. He can use what he's good at, which is he's quick over the first however many blades of grass. He's quite quick in general. He can turn really well as that. And I think in terms of getting Rangers up the pitch, in terms of being a transitional threat, that's important, because I don't think Ramsey gives you that. You could argue that, yes, Ramsey maybe gives you better ball distribution and is better across the boards, but I think Rangers aren't here because of individuals. And as much as James Tavernier is a tournament top scorer, and Alfredo Morels was brilliant before he got injured, and Ryan Kent's been brilliant, you could look through the whole team: John Lundstram, Glenn Kamara in aspects, Connor Goldson, Borna Barisic in the quarter-final. This is a team effort, and I think you've got to probably make the decision that's going to give the team the best chance of facing what Ali says, as Ali says, is a very difficult opponent. But equally, to the other side of that, could you see Aaron Ramsey coming on and scoring the winner? Of course you could, because he's got that quality. So a difficult decision, but I do kind of think the manager will go with the team, as you said, that played Ross County, but with Ryan Jack back in there.
Yeah, Ian Ross says, Ali, Ramsey would be a much better option off the bench. Would you go along with that? He might not even get used off the bench. What was the game? Was it the Leipzig game? He was on the bench and never used him. Do you think he's got a part to play on Wednesday?
I think off the bench for me would be better, because the sort of first 25 to 30 minutes, the transitions will be done. We can then bring him on and use his pace, or certainly use his ability to transition or carry the ball or do things over distance that potentially, if you look back at the semi-final, where he almost ran his race against Celtic after 20 minutes, and he made probably 5 or 6 sprints in that first 20 minutes that maybe over a regular game would have maybe happened over 70 minutes, right? So I think this is not a normal match that this team would obviously play in, based on the tempo of the game, what we're likely to be up against. Obviously, Frankfurt aren't a massive possession team, but they are your sort of typical Bundesliga build at the back. So there's waves of forward pressure and dropping off that are obviously going to have to manage. But I think coming off the bench for me would likely be the best. But at the same time, yeah, I agree with you, mate. It's mental, I think we would be.
Yeah. I know, having that conversation on deadline day. But and also, Ramsey hasn't actually played that much recently since his injury, and that's, you're talking about match sharpness. And I know Ramsey played against Hearts and Dundee United, but I think, did he play 90 minutes? I mean, he's not really a 90 minutes player at this point of his career, but how many games has he played since his injury? 3. How great. Frankfurt have averaged, I think it's 42% possession in the knockout stages, and Rangers 44%. So it's two teams that have been more comfortable when they've not had the ball, really, or certainly that's what the results would show. So it's a difficult decision, but this is why we are not the manager, Derek, and we're talking about it but again, Van Bronckhorst has got these decisions right. If you look time upon time, the substitutions he's made at points, and we were speaking about this morning, the maturity of him as a manager, maybe a little bit ahead of Gerrard in terms of impact in a game. He's got it right to this point. So I think whatever the decision the manager makes, it'll be hard to turn around and say that wasn't the right decision, because it's ultimately his judgment calls that have got Rangers to this stage.
Yeah. In terms of mics, lads, we have to put them up right up close to our mouths when
I was.
So,
It's
almost
like
as if you're eating the thing. So there, I think we've troubleshooted it, and there we go. Thetrifying Scotsman says Derek looks like he's about to break out the house music on the decks. That's after the show. We're getting the tunes on. So it's a cracking setup we've got here. You seen the video? I done a little tour yesterday, overlooking the rooftop terraces here in Seville. I've really want to watch with the HQ here. Unfortunately, though, Joshua, the outside shower is not working, and that is an absolute gutter for the many of the subscribers that are looking to tune in and see you or me.
Just Adam, I think. Just Adam Thornton, friend of the show. But
Yeah,
it is, and we should say as well to anyone coming over, stay hydrated, Derek, because it is honestly ridiculously hot. I mean, just Ali lives obviously in a far more serene continent than us.
yeah.
And I tan much better than you, Derek. But still, today I was, and it's meant to be hotter tomorrow. 35 degrees tomorrow. Derek's gonna have to stay inside the whole day.
Well, I was absolutely sweating today. It was Scotchio, as Harry Enfield would say, seeking shade like nobody's business. So if you're heading out, folks, just make sure that you get the factor 50 or what have you on. Joshua, you've got a bit of a tan though today, but you're pleased about.
I am not shy to a bit of a tan. I did say to my wife, I'm going to come back and be quite tan. So fingers crossed. Ali does too, a wee bit. So not quite as much as
here's
me.
the thing though. So
You live in America, Ali. So
living in Charlotte, right? This is a normal day for us, right? However, there's a very critical part of that. I stay indoors when it's like this, typically, in air-conditioned places. So that's usually
sensible.
Maybe 90 or so minutes I have to go outside to coach a game and then run back inside again.
I like this comment from Curry Muncher. I never knew this. Belinda Carlisle wishing Rangers the best, just class.
With the record sales, she should be.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent. She's a good bear, as they say. So, fantastic stuff by old Belinda there. Duncan says, keep the factor 50 on. Yep, absolutely. I've got three layers, three bottles of sun cream with me. You can't take chances in this weather, that's for sure. 35 degrees. Yep. Thing is, come kickoff time, Joshua, we looked at this last night. It was a bit chilly. The Rangers players, I mean, if we're playing at this time, what time are we on? Here in Spain, it's 6:30. So kickoff is in 2.5 hours' time. It's going to get much more milder by kickoff, isn't it?
It's not as humid as you'd think. And obviously that could change over the next couple of days. But hopefully, I mean, and also as we were discussing yesterday, over some tapas, Derek, the players have obviously played a lot of these away games before, think of their games in Portugal and whatnot. I mean, Ali, maybe you're better placed to say how that can affect performance, climate.
Yeah.
While Ali does that, I'm going to get a couple more beers.
Fantastic. Great idea.
My experience of this has been twofold. I think for footballers, certainly at the professional level, and you see this a lot in MLS, for example, where teams will go to Texas or other places in the sort of southeast, maybe Florida, and they're playing games at 2 PM in this heat, and they just can't move. It's extremely hard. And then obviously at night time, you've then got the thing of, well, it's cooler, but you've been in that temperature all day, right? So if they're out running a session tomorrow night, maybe it's important that they spend some time in a bit more humidity, obviously, to somewhat acclimate for the game. But it's this time of the season, obviously cramp's a huge thing anyway, right? So then you got to add in the dehydrated factor and whatnot. So here's hoping we've got a few more guys that are used to it rather than the colder German weather as well. So maybe we're both in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this comment from Tally McLaren. Kevin and Perry with eyeball Paul in the middle. The Kevin and Perry fans. You seen Kevin Perry go large? Wow, you're having a laugh, Joshua. You've never seen Kevin and Perry go large?
No, I've not.
Come on.
I don't know what that is. Is that before my time?
All I want to do is do it.
Nah,
you ever seen that?
No idea.
Well,
no idea. Now, I want to ask you, Derek. Now you were on somewhat of a venture today.
It was.
A couple of stadiums. My favorite. I don't know if you follow Derek on Twitter, you must go and watch the video of him stumbling across some cats.
Well, I seen a stray cat and I went, "Oh, there's a cat," and then it's actually a family of cats. If you're actually heading towards the Olympic Stadium to watch the game on the big screens, folks, you'll see there's a family of cats and they've put out food and drink and all that for them. So just watch out for that if you're heading along to the game tomorrow night. Cracking Stadium, when I managed to get in, I sneaked in through a door where guys were removing kegs of San Miguel. And I got to see the scaffolding where the screens are going to be. There's going to be 4 massive screens in there by the sound of things. So the fans will be catered for. The only thing is a bit out the way. I got an Uber there. Well, it's an hour and a bit walk from the actual stadium where the game's going to be played. So I know that a number of supporters will be travelling by car, of course, and all manner of means. But it's certainly one that you should get a taxi too, if you're heading to watch the game in that huge stadium. But yeah, it doesn't even look like a stadium. It's like a hotel outside it. But once you get inside, you can see it is a fantastic arena. I posted pictures a little earlier on as well, so you can have a look at that. But yeah, hopefully they're putting things on outside as well. There's not really a lot there. There was a little cafe bar I managed to go into, but there's only one. At the Copa del Rey final was there recently, so there's lots of signage for that, but no Europa League signage. But in terms of the actual stadium where the final is going to be played, very busy today with broadcasting trucks turning up. You've seen I've done a little walk around, a little tour of the ground. Can't wait to get inside as well. I think is there a open training session or something tomorrow, Joshua?
Oh, yeah, so we've got the press conference, obviously, I think the players flew over this afternoon, and the press conference with the manager and you presume James Tavernier, but it could be any of the players tomorrow evening. And I think either before or after that, imagine it'll be a late session, but it'll be nice to see the players do a bit of a training session. Obviously, about 24 hours before the game, or just a little bit under that. So we'll be heading up to that tomorrow, and then coming back to do another one of these live shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Some comments coming in. People worried about the San Miguel.
Another thing, Derek, quickly, while you're looking,
I'm putting barrels of Buckfast in, so that's that's good.
I don't know if they have that over here.
Duncan's got some inside knowledge there.
The other thing I was going to say is when I was speaking to a couple of people is if you're flying tomorrow or Wednesday, leave plenty of time. You were at Manchester Airport and the queuing was fine, but it might not be as good tomorrow. So do leave loads. You don't want to miss out your trip because you didn't leave 20 minutes early for the what am I saying? Luggage security. So do leave plenty of time.
Yeah, I love this comment from Alex Kelly. It looks like a scene from Pulp Fiction where John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson have to change their bloody clothes. You watch Pulp Fiction?
I do, but I don't understand the reference. Again, it's a bit
no biggie.
Johnny would like that. He's a big film.
Yeah, he loves his films. Listen, in terms of Manchester, I flew from Manchester, as did Ali. Security was fine. I've seen horror stories of people queuing in the car park and what have you. There was a bigger queue at the bar once you pass check-in, so I wasn't worried too much. That was Terminal 3, folks. If anyone's flying from Ryanair, I went Ryanair to Nantes to Seville. Ali, you went EasyJet.
Yeah, that was the same deal.
Yeah.
Ryanair for me. So it's 2 Ryanairs.
Other airlines are available, of course, folks. So Duncan says, Josh, do you watch anything?
The football.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watch Serie B. I can talk about that or not. What else do I watch? I like The Office, Derek, and I like
that. Yeah.
I just watched an English game. Have you watched that before about the origins of football?
Yeah.
I think it was out a long time ago, but I watched that and enjoyed that, learning about the how the Scots introduced the passing game. Yeah. So there you have it.
Shame we got rid of that. Right?
Yeah, I know. Wasn't long lasting, but that was a good watch. Aside from that, no, a lot of football and not a big TV man.
Yeah. John Holmes says I need a Union Jack hat for that napper, Derek. Yeah, I had a hat on earlier, John. Not a Union Jack one, but you need to get a sombrero, right enough. I've seen a few sombreros actually. You come across any sombreros, Rangers fans in sombreros, Ali?
Couple, yeah. There was we're driving down to Manchester and there's a few RV sort of camper vans.
Wow, yeah.
No, crikey, imagine driving here from Glasgow. Yeah, good. God love them. They all had their hats on. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Let's see some comments coming in here. Alexander Cameron Joshua, he says, I think the team that played against Leipzig is a team I would start in the final. Would you go along with that? I think that's pretty much the Ross County team, isn't it, with Jack for Lowry?
Just Jack, yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely Bassey at centre half. Again, what a funny, if you spoke after that Sparta Prague game away from home when Bassey had that. Imagine saying he'd be the centre half in a European final, but his development's been fantastic. John Lundstram will be so important, such a clever footballer. So I think takes on the tactical information that his manager gives so well. You know, you see Lundstram, the first leg against Leipzig, we were there, Derek, when he's playing in the middle of a back three and a real disciplined role. And in the home leg against Leipzig, he starts at the right of a back three, and it's a much more aggressive role where you're really exposed. And then the Old Firm sandwiched in between that, he's a box-to-box midfielder who's getting into relatively high attacking positions. So, I mean, for me, Ali, I mean, it's a good time to talk about John Lundstram because I think he is probably the most important player for me in these
The
4
best
rounds.
on earth, I've heard.
Best on earth. I mean, when he is doing these roles so differently, he kind of comes across to me as a proper modern footballer in a way, but also an old school footballer who isn't necessarily maybe specialised, but that's a good thing because he can do lots of different things and he can fulfill lots of different roles. And for the manager to have someone on the pitch that is able to go into a back three, change things quickly, how beneficial is that when you don't have to wait to the dressing room at halftime to explain?
Oh, hugely, and I think, but if you look at the structure of it all, it's went from a situation where under Gerrard he was bought to do a very prescriptive thing, cover 2 or 3 different sort of permutations within a very structured role, play within a box, do exactly what you want you to do. And I think that's been for me the big change under Van Bronckhorst is, if you go back to when he took over, we started playing a lot more defensive, fullbacks a lot more deeper, midfielders cover more ground in front. Maybe that wasn't his game.
Yeah.
Now we've started to put the fullbacks a lot higher again. Now he's able to drop in, like we said, and cover defensive areas and play forward. So I think essentially what they've given him now is the ability to go figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than just here's exactly what we want you to do. And I think you can certainly see that a lot of players. Like even if you look at how you talk about Bassey there, able to carry the ball at the back, that would obviously never have happened under Gerrard because we had a very prescriptive, this is how we build, So I think giving players a bit more freedom, I think has allowed them to maybe play with less mental fatigue, play with a bit more confidence, and then also put his imprint on the game of what he sees, who I'm up against. Do I need to get tight? Can I sit off? You talk about the Leipzig game there as well, up against really good midfielders that can carry the ball. Well, that's perfect because he's a good tackler and he can get tight to players. Whereas some of the issues we've had against Celtic is where you've got players running past him and they've just got to track runners and not necessarily tackle for the ball. So I think we've saw the good and the bad of him this season, to be honest with you. But I think what I really like in the last couple of games is his energy and his enthusiasm is just through the roof. Now he's covering ground way better than he did.
He looks a lot fitter.
Season. Right.
Yeah. And you look back to that Dundee United game that Rangers lost at the start of the season back in August, and I think Lundstram's kind of one of the players at fault for that goal. You're right, you look at the prescription. It's a great word for talking about how Rangers have to get the ball forwards, and to elaborate on that, you think of the patterns of play where Glenn Kamara drop in one side, or Stephen Davis maybe stay central or drop in between the centre backs, and Rangers are a bit slower and more methodical in their build up. But there was places to go in specific areas that a midfielder had to fulfill. Right. And now you look at Lundstram, and as I've just said, those 3 different roles he's played within 3 different games. He is a bit of an all-action player because he's got a shot on him. You see that, you've seen that numerous times. He's got a shot with both feet. But to consign him to within a role, he almost does feel like a throwback player. And maybe that's why, to be romantic about it, he wasn't as well suited to a really modernised system which has specific instructions for each position. And he's better when you free him up and you just say, obviously there's instructions and obviously there's real discipline in what he does, but he has the freedom within that. I
think as well, if you look at it from a coaching perspective, and this is one of the little things I've noticed since when Bronckhorst taken over, is players' body position as they receive the ball. Under Gerrard, everything I felt was very flat. So Davis may be the exception to the rule, but it was so structured that Jack would receive it on a line and play immediately back and then play forward. Whereas now it looks like the midfielders are on the half turn. They're being drilled into them about don't have your shoulders facing the goal. Little things that I think, even at the pro level, really make a big difference because it now opens up angles to pass. It now frees up a bit of pressure from the opposition who are pressing you. So, like I say, it's those little tiny details for me that I've been really impressed with. And a guy, like say, if we go back to the start of the season, I don't even think I saw Lundstram pass it forward once. It was always
was very sideways, wasn't he? Very sideways, yeah.
Difference with the other night, he's pinging 60, 70 yard diagonals to Rebo. It's,
and you probably underestimate. It's the same with Lowry. Sorry, Derek. I'll stop.
No, Pat, carry on.
Going away from the structure, but it's a bit underrated. And Johnny's mentioned this a few times. I think it's underrated the actual pace players move the ball with, not even the tempo of play. The actual pace that a pass goes, and you see that with Lowry. I think he often pings it, and you sometimes think he's so slight. How's he moving it quicker than everyone else? But Lundstram as well has really got that ping across the pitch, and I think he's quite an emblem of the Van Bronckhorst era. And also, again, to go back to the direct play from back to front, and this is, I think, an element of why Rangers might, if Rangers are to beat Frankfurt, Rangers are unorthodox, I think, in the way they've played a lot of the time in this European run, because they just go over the press. And you can have the best structured press in the world, and Frankfurt can have, it worked well against Barcelona. And as I was talking about earlier, you can have numbers committed to either side to make sure that you're condensing the space around the ball. But if Rangers just play it over the top of you, it's a risk, and the pass percentage might be low, but sometimes it works. So there's lots of interesting things within it. But yeah, certainly I think this run has been a good CV bump for Van Bronckhorst, because he's done a fantastic job of finding solutions, beating better resource teams, with a team that, let's not forget, he's only signed 2 of the 3 of the players, and we don't even know, how, if there are signings, whatever. So positive for me, Derek. Positive for me.
Yeah, there's some cracking questions coming in. There's a question about me taking my glasses off. Unfortunately, they're a prescription, and I can't read the comments that are coming in if I was to take them off. So, yeah, that's the reason, Colin, why I can't take them off. Can't read the comments that are coming in. An absolute beauty of a question that was posed with regards to Roy Mackay. I'll try and, there we go, from Graham Sinclair. What benefits, if any, do you think having folk like Gio and Roy Mackay with big Euro finals experience under their belt could have? Personally speaking, Ali, I think it's huge. I think Roy Mackay, having a guy like that, has been there and done it, played for the biggest clubs in Europe. Not to mention Van Bronckhorst has been at the very top, reached a World Cup final, captained Holland, of course, the World Cup final, won the Champions League. That surely has to rub off in the players' head in this one, would you reckon?
It does. I think there's a calmness about professional footballers that have experienced that big thing that perhaps a coach who is maybe played at a lower level and hasn't experienced those big occasions. And I again, not even just the game itself. I mean, the travel piece, the preparation, the media, everything that goes with it. There's sometimes a lot of coaches can get caught up in that. And to be honest with you, it's one of them that I think at the top level, everyone knows everything about football now. Tactically, everyone's all set. Like you could have any coach at the Champions League or Europa League level could put a symposium on about a back four and speak you through it great. So I think those days of having clueless managers at that level are gone. It's how do you manage, how calm you are, how can you get your message across to the players? Can you still exude a bit of control in those situations where potentially players might be lacking it because again they're nervous, they want to impress, they're maybe looking for a move somewhere else and everything that goes with it. So I think that's the massive benefit. And I think if you look at coaches like Mackay and Van Bronckhorst as well, is they've grafted, right? They've put their work in through the levels. They've worked with younger players, they've worked with pro players. So from a detail perspective, I think they've got a nuance that perhaps a lot of other managers and coaches don't have. And like I say, like you mentioned, they've both played in high pressure finals, so being able to show that calmness is going to be important. Yeah, most definitely. Some comments coming in about Joshua here. I wanted to raise this one from Rangers FC Forever. Joshua. Josh looks totally different in Spain. Do you want to answer that? Like a local.
Yeah, do you want to answer?
Maybe I have
that
Spanish
question?
blood somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say to that.
And there's another, I love this comment that comes in. Where is it again?
You should have started it, Derek.
Colin Cooper. Josh, you've got a grin like a Cheshire cat, man. You're living the dream. You are living the dream, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. But I was laughing at what our boss has just put on the Rangers review, which is go and look at it if you haven't seen it. I'll just show Ali in the person. It is a reference to the Pulp Fiction.
Class.
A photo. I mean, I don't know enough about this to talk through it, but you might want to talk us through it there.
I can't believe you've never seen Pulp Fiction.
I mean, I've seen it, but so I understand it to a degree, but it doesn't really stick in my memory. I'm not a movie lover.
Unbelievable. And we'll crack on. Right, I wanted to touch on this point, lads. I love this. From Sonny, who's got in touch. Thanks, Sonny. Would this be the greatest send-off for Davis and McGregor? Right. I'll start off. Davis is not playing on Wednesday night, Joshua. Surely not. I think he'll play on Saturday against Hearts, where hopefully he'll sign off with a Scottish Cup win. For McGregor, though, he missed, of course, 2008. He got injured for the semi-finals, and Neil Alexander came in to bow out with a Europa League and a Scottish Cup, although I think John McLaughlin should get the nod against Hearts and Hampden. But for McGregor, I'd imagine this, I know there's been rumours, talks about a new deal, but for me to bow out at 40 years of age for Europa League is perfection for me.
I think regardless, he'll probably bow out. You know, you've got to, I think, know when to stop, don't you? And I don't think he dropped down a level. Maybe he will. But I think you've seen, you know, with McGregor, he's not the most, and you'll know this, everyone will know this who's watched a press conference with him, not the most emotive man at points. He can be quite straight-faced. I don't know if you've noticed. But I think you see him after that game and the emotion that was coming out of him as he's walking around kind of with his arms outstretched.
Singing the Blue Sea of Ibrox.
Yeah, but I think, you know, you've got to read into
things you love to see.
That for him it's the peak of his Rangers career in terms of achievement, because you're right, he's played to get to this stage. And if he is able to win it, I think that would just be pretty remarkable. I mean, it's a whole other conversation of where was this rank in Scottish football history, but given the financial disparity, I mean, Leipzig spent, 100 million last summer? Rangers spent, as we said this morning, well, it would have just been kind of fees for free players, really, wouldn't it? So, I mean, the achievement would be incredible. And even if Davis hasn't played that much in this run to the final, he's been such a fantastic player. I'd still be tempted to keep him around for another year. And you know me, Derek, I'm not one to want players that are 37 to stay around, but I just think if you play him 20 times in the season, even we've seen him higher up the pitch against Dundee United last weekend, I thought still so classy. So, but probably is going to be a send-off, I think, if we see how much Van Bronckhorst has used him.
Yeah, Ally, this is a talk that's sort of, it's a debate that's happened this season. Is Alan McGregor the greatest Rangers goalie ever? Over to you.
No. It's Andy Gore.
And there we go. So, I mean, everyone wishes Andy Gore all the best. Incidentally, of course, not too well at the moment with some health issues, but everyone at the Rangers Review wishes him a full recovery, of course. But yeah, it's a debate you love to have, of course. Two outrageously good goalkeepers. Rangers have been blessed with good keepers, and I think, Joshua, going forward, I think we've touched on this. I'd be more than happy having John McLaughlin as the number one next season, with Robbie McCrory stepping up. What say you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been writing about this for a while, about, I think, the need for Rangers to play a goalkeeper who is comfortable with the ball at his feet. I think you see in the Cup semi-final against Celtic, the recent two Old Firms, you have the game at Parkhead, the 1-1 game, where McGregor kind of plays over the press, and Rangers, I think, probably adapt to his ability in possession. You know, he's not going to be able to take the ball under pressure and kind of goad the Celtic players in as McLaughlin did at Hampden. But I think you've seen really nice signs at Hampden of what a Rangers team could look like playing out the back, taking some risks. But again, you look at Hearts at the weekend, I think it's Lowry's goal. It all comes from attracting that pressure and having the ability to play into space. And I think we all know, watching Rangers domestically, space isn't always forthcoming. So to be able to create that by inviting pressure, I think is quite a novelty. I don't know what you think about the goalkeeper situation, Ali, but for me, I think all around world football, you see that the importance of a goalkeeper in possession to almost create a back three now is where the game's going, and I think Rangers need to copy that this summer.
No, I agree completely. There's been a few heart attack moments, to be honest, this year with McGregor, God love him. But I think as well that, well, in possession, the role of the goalkeeper's changing, but I'd also say as well the not that shot stopping is becoming a sort of lesser grade, because clearly it's not, right. We're always going to need goalkeepers at Rangers that can make quality saves. But I think it's those things about attacking set pieces, attacking a ball when you've got a high line. Can you come off your line quickly and cover ground? You know, those are going to be important things for us. And I think, again, the other harsh realities of it is, you know, there's other areas of the team right now that just needs higher priority. So spending, you know, X amount of wages and, you know, a transfer fee on a goalkeeper when, like you guys have said, McLaughlin's there and you've got young McCrory as well. It's, you know, there's maybe only 7 or 8 games a year that Rangers really need an absolute top level goalkeeper, but it's those 7 or 8 games that are going to dictate the rest of your season. So it's, you know, I think it's important to get it right, and allied to that, have a centre back pairing that can work with that goalkeeper. You know, McLaughlin's a quieter presence. He's not a screamer and a shouter like McGregor is. But if you now have 2 quiet centre backs, let's say if Wilson was to leave the club and you now have 2 quiet lads at centre back, all of a sudden now you become a little bit more vulnerable there potentially. And like I say, I just think it all needs to marry together.
That leads us nicely on, Ali, as if by magic. Scythe gets in touch. Would you expect these 2 games to be the last for any of our boys except Davis and McGregor? Joshua, I think Goldson, you were at the game against Ross County. Was the last game at Ibrox?
Yes.
Did it look like Goldson was saying his goodbyes? Would you be surprised to see him at Ibrox next season?
I wasn't. I kind of just seen photos of it because I was obviously finishing up a piece or something after the game. But I think if a player's not signed the contract by this point, unless by some miracle there's some verbal agreement to run down his contract and sign on again because of some. I mean, we obviously don't know. The only thing that would perhaps suggest that the Goldson isn't going somewhere is that there's not been actually that much noise about it, and obviously nothing's been announced. But I don't know about Ali, but I kind of think he's going to go, which I think will be a real shame. I mean, I remember tweeting something recently, how many million alone to replace Goldson's diagonals. And he's going to be such a hard player to replace, because the Connor Goldson that Rangers bought for 3 million was a good player, but the one they're selling is a lot better. In possession, I think you look at him against Poulsen, who's a really experienced international striker in that previous round, and he bullied him the whole game. He bullied him. So to have that consistent presence in the back line to replace that will be difficult. Then you look at Kent, Aribo, and Morelos last year of their deal. You look at players like Kamara, who haven't had a great season, albeit they were really influential in getting Rangers to this stage, and you think, is it time to move on? You need to refresh the squad. What you do at left back, there's a real need for squad turnover, and you have to trust that Ross Wilson and the board have planned for that. Because, again, to go back to Ali on this, it will be really hard if you're going to sell 3-4 players, a few go out of contract, to get that many players in one summer and make it work quickly. That's a difficult thing to do.
Well, I think if you look at, I guess an example, because it's sort of close to home, is with Celtic, right, where they had a big turnover in the summer, brought in a few players at the start. It was a bit of a disaster, really, right, until Christmas, until they figured it out and brought in some more players, and then from January onwards, they've obviously kicked on and done what they've done. So, it may take Rangers to do that over those 2 windows. Certainly, over the next 3, we're going to see some movement. So, I think the Goldson situation for me, I think he could earn and probably should earn more money at a Premier League level club, and I think he's certainly good enough to do that. So that's what I would see him probably playing next season. Even though I'd love to see him obviously stay with the club and pay him what we can pay him. But again, I go back to we're going to need that wages probably over the forward line. I mean, we literally have no right wingers really at the club right now. There's, like you mentioned, left back. If Bassey's futures as a centre back, then really right now we don't have any left backs. So, like I say, I think there's a couple positions that we need to refresh, and maybe centre back is the one you gamble on. It's a younger player over a longer project, and you can embed them in. I'm not entirely sold that Suter's that player yet. Maybe Suter's the backup to that guy. Obviously, we've saw today that the Dutch lad is signed for for Berlin. Is it Berlin?
I think was it Union Berlin or was it Hertha?
Union.
Was it Union?
Union
Okay.
Berlin,
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
And he was a player that you could see because he was so aggressive, but you could see him fitting into that Van Bronckhorst mold. But for me, I think Bassey will definitely be one of those 2 centre backs next season. You forget that he actually played Lundstram in a 2 at one point as well. I wouldn't put it past Van Bronckhorst in a home game against any domestic team that he's trying to break down, or maybe a team that specifically sits deep. I wouldn't put it past him playing Lundstram in a back 2 at points, although obviously that's not his position domestically. I don't think so. Lots to address in the summer, but I tell you what will make it a whole lot easier: winning the Europa League, because that would certainly open the purse string somewhat.
Sure. Yeah, it certainly would. Stuart Cabell says, what's the banging in the background, guys? It wouldn't surprise me if that's Rangers fans, Joshua, Ali. I mean,
gave me a fright.
Yeah, it would not surprise me. I'm sure the Union Bears have got something lined up, surely, for heading to the Europa League.
I mean, the displays to this point have been unbelievable.
The one at Braga was sensational.
The one at Braga, and the semi-final one with the Barcelona display was breathtaking. They've been absolutely fantastic, so full credit to them for that, and they've helped create a fantastic atmosphere as ever. Yeah,
a few more minutes to go, guys. We'll try and get through as many questions as we can. Colin Cooper says, Ali, Arfield in a 1-year extension is a great signing as well. His energy and aggression is excellent. Were you happy to see Arfield sign a 1-year deal.
It was a strange one in the sense that I just didn't see it coming, to be honest with you. But to be honest with you, his form has been good, right? And I guess it's one of them where maybe he's taking a pay cut for this one. Maybe it's maybe there's I guess a piece there of that they've committed to him to maybe look into going into coaching at the same time. So I think there's more to it perhaps than just okay, he's another midfielder, to sort of bolster the squad. I certainly don't see him as being a starting player, but I think even if you look at all the time he's been there, he's never been a full season guy, has he? Really? I mean, he's been sort of patchy. Maybe start of the season, end of the season, and maybe that's what we need right now, right? It's just that parts of the season when you need a player.
Yeah, Joshua, where do you stand in the Scott Arfield extension? I think he's one of those players where behind the scenes it's so beneficial to have him around in the dressing room. It's just that link, and you see. I mean, the Rangers TV videos. You see he's always in and about the place, introducing himself to players. So for me, it was a no-brainer signing him up.
I think, I agree with Ali. It depends on whether if Rangers are in a position again as they were in March, where Scott Arfield's played X number of games in a row and is their right wing option again. I don't think it's a good signing because I think it's plugging a gap that needs to be filled. But if he comes in and plays 20 games, starts 20, 25, 30 games next season, presuming Rangers, how many games they played this season? You will be 60 by the end?
Loads.
Ridiculous. It might not be quite as many next season, but you don't know, as this season has taught us. So, obviously we don't know what goes on in the background of these deals. You'd imagine maybe some sort of pay cut, I guess, because he's not in his peak as he was when he signed that 3 or 4 year contract back when he joined the club. But I think it depends on his role. Rangers really need to address that right-sided position, and there's so many questions in the summer. What happens with Hadji? All these things. So again, that's why the sporting director is a sporting director, to have these contingency plans.
Mark Lawson with the point, how's Johnny not out there with you? He would absolutely love to be out here, Mark. I can speak for Johnny. He is gutted he's not here, but he's back at base camp back in Glasgow. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that you don't know of that he needs to make sure that they're ticking over. So but he's very, very jealous, isn't he, Joshua?
I've never heard a man more jealous as to when you told him you were having tapas with, I think, fried shrimp last night.
Boiled shrimp.
Boiled
my
shrimp.
God,
yeah,
tremendous. If you've not had that, folks, get it. If you're in Seville, then eat how the locals eat. I had clams as well. Absolutely magic. And if you're heading over, a lot of people heading over today or tomorrow, even Wednesday, they're coming over. Safe travels to everyone making their way over to Seville by whatever means possible. The Rangers fans are certainly taking over. Haven't seen any Frankfurt supporters as yet. I'm sure we'll see a good few of them as it nears kickoff. But in terms of Rangers supporters, I actually asked at the stadium where they're going to show the game on the big screens how many Rangers fans are expected, and the guy behind the desk says he was not able to tell me, but imagine, it's a 60,000 seat stadium, Ali. Imagine there's a fair few Rangers fans making their way over there.
80,000 maybe.
Yeah.
On the grass.
Yeah. So it's absolutely frightening. So many supporters making their way over. It really is a pilgrimage of Rangers fans heading down to Seville. We'll wrap up the show. We'll get a prediction from you, Ali. No sitting on the fence, please. Are Rangers going to do it?
I think they are. I think I'm going to win 2-1.
Wow.
I'm thinking,
no messing about.
No, I do. And the reason I think they're going to win 2-1 is that we've typically started these games well. The big pressure games, we start well. There's a lull usually in about start of second half where, set pieces aren't our best friend.
That could have been bad. That could have been bad.
Set pieces aren't our best friend. So, hopefully we can not lose a goal there, because I may lose all my hair after that, after I've pulled it out all season. But again, usually we end it well. And I think, scoring that winning goal could be... the beer slowly trickles towards the computer.
I'm going to need to get some kitchen roll, folks. The 35 Scotsman said, "Needs to ask, is Mr. Bain getting the fiddle out I think he's getting mixed up with the fiddler.
Usually,
I think he's double booked.
Usually, when the magistrate called me a fiddler that time, it was,
I'm going to get some.
Yeah, Josh is going to get some kitchen roll, folks. There's been a bit of a beer disaster here on the table, but we'll carry on regardless. CRS says Frankfurt 1, Rangers 3. Steely FM is going for a 3-1 win for Rangers. Let's hear your prediction, folks. Get in the comments how you think the game is going to end up. Alex Kelly is also going for a 3-1 Rangers win. We'll certainly bite your hand off for that, no question about it. But it's great to have your company as ever, folks. As I mentioned, it's one of 2 live evening shows we're having in the build-up to Wednesday's Europa League final. Tomorrow we'll have another show at the same time, 6 p.m. UK time, or if you are in Spain, 7 p.m. Looking ahead to the big one on Wednesday. Well done, Joshua, getting it the towel up there. Yeah, fantastic stuff. You deserve a pair of eyes. But just before we go, folks, thanks very much, Ally, first of all, for joining us. It's been great having you on, and Joshua as well.
And where can we find Ally? We should ask Ally.
Yeah, where can we find Ally online?
Yeah. So my Twitter handle's at Ally Bain, dead simple.
And Ally's project on the site. Fantastic project.
Yes,
plug that. Come on, Ally.
It's at Analysis Retro, and I look at when football was really good, which is typically the 90s, and I look back at Rangers' run recently, 92-93 Champions League season. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, go in there and have a little look.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. I'd very much urge you to go and check it out, guys. Remember, just a reminder for that deal we've got on the website. It's your last chance to take advantage of it. £6 for 6 months worth of content. And you also get entered into a prize draw for 2 tickets to the Europa League final on Wednesday night. One lucky winner being picked at random tomorrow at 9 a.m. And you can also enter if you have subscribed before that promotion started. Just check your email inbox, your junk mail, and your spam folder as well. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow morning for the daily briefing. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.